Hello everyone, it's Eric. Back when Freshy Kanal ended part 6 of his rap battle series, I made a ranking. The same day I made that ranking, part 7 began. Now, over a year later, part 7 is over, and it is time to rank the 21 videos from it. That includes the main rap battles, the sponsored rap battles, and the cypher, but not the remastered Yuri vs. Toko. These videos are all very high quality in every aspect, and they're incredibly impressive given how frequently they're uploaded. However, being high quality does not always correlate to enjoyment. Some of the very lowest battles in this list definitely have their fans, and I'll explain what stands out to me in each battle and why it places where it does. With all that out of the way, let's begin. Number 21 is Billy Kid vs. Von Lyacon. The first of the 3 sponsored battles, sponsored by Hoyoverse to be exact. There's not much that needs to be said. I imagine there's not much passion behind these battles, they mainly exist to fund the bigger projects. I'm fine with that intent, but this is still the worst of part 7. The video style of the sponsored battles is the least stylish of the catalog, and that's not a great start. This battle in particular, though, has writing and audio issues that make the whole thing annoying. The beat is very high energy, and I like the percussion, but the vocal samples are just way too overbearing. It's nearly impossible to tell what Von Lyacon is saying 3/4 of the time because of how loud the beat is. Also because the Von Lyacon performance is very quiet, trying to be intimidating, but it just doesn't fit on this beat. Carter Sauce is a louder performance, and he's good, but it's still just kind of fine. He raps well, but he could not make this writing work. Right from that opening rhyme scheme, it is clear that this writing is the worst of the list. It's crazy rhyme schemes that just throw a ton of rhyming words at the wall. The actual substance of this opener is so disconnected that even the subtitles have to split 2 lines into 3 parts. It's insane. There are some fun joke ideas in here. I like the pocket watch couplet honestly, and hold still, hands in the air, or should I say pause, is a solid punchline. However, it's hard to get over how hard the rhyme schemes are pushed no matter how clunky they make the lines sound. The other prime example is the start of Von Lyacon's first verse. He says the line, "Use a can of some fresheners," to rhyme with the rest of it. Typically, one would refer to such a can as a can of freshener, not a can of some fresheners. I mean, I don't know if a freshener can's a thing, but one does not have multiple fresheners in one can. On the flip side of that issue, the rhyme scheme is dropped at moments where it could have been kept easily. The last line of the scheme is, "What does some passionate metal work to a natural predator?" But the line would be way smoother as something like, "What's some scrappy old metal work to a natural predator?" This scheme just does everything wrong. This might seem like a nitpick, but get used to it. I recognize that these issues don't need to be brought up as they're way more glaring than in the major battles, but I wanted to make it clear that the battle's status as a sponsored tie-in is not why it's the worst. Number 20 is Furina vs. arelcchino. I do not have enough interest in the battle to properly pronounce that, I am sorry. Let's keep this short. Same video issues as Billy Kid, but the battle has some genuine merit, and some bits I find funny. It's clear that the performances are more like conventional rap battle ones. Ozzy and HalaCG both put the appropriate emphasis on major lines. They do a pretty good job. Far from their best rap battle roles, but that's excusable and I appreciate their effort. The beat is also not as obnoxious, it's actually not obnoxious at all, and while I don't love it, it doesn't take away from their performances. The writing's still not great. The line, "Your performance needs work in it," is maybe the most confusing thing I've ever heard. The flow is not very tight on this battle either, actually having some more dragged out syllables than Billy Kid, with certain lines like, "You're the real illusionist." But it's fine. The battle does get extra points for the ending bit though. In the outro, the two complement each other, which I like for 2 reasons. 1, the last sponsored battle didn't have that, which implies that those guys just hate each other. 2, there is apparently shipping between these 2 Genshin characters, and it recontextualizes the things they say in the outro. It's really funny when you think about it like that. This battle is not great, but it is better than Billy Kid. Number 19 is Cupid vs. Leprechaun vs. Easter Bunny. The first of the major battles, I've unfortunately never been a big fan. It's hard to fully grasp why. There's so much to enjoy here. The animation is so involved, there's 3 exceptional rappers playing the main roles, and there are jokes galore. However, each time I revisit the battle, I find a lot of it very mediocre, and the endings overall be very awkward and unfunny. In terms of the main portion of the battle, these characters represent holidays, so there was a lot of material. So much, in fact, that I find it disappointing how few of the jokes were all that clever to me. I think the River Dance, Guinness Record, and Shots Make Family lines probably the only standouts that I consider great, which is unfortunate given how many lines there are. Some lines come close to greatness, but they have flow or wording issues that hold them back. A good example is, "All because you're prey to everyone don't mean you're in the Bible." It should be, "Just because you're prey to everyone." And while that is a small thing, it actively worsens the line and confuses me as to why it's in that form. I don't have a ton of other notes on individual lines, but I will say more on the flow. This was written by 7 people, with 2 giving additional writing help. Unfortunately, the differing ideas do not always mesh together well. Some writers clearly cared more about punchlines, others wanted crazy rhyme schemes, and this all turned into a bit of a mess, with some really bad moments like the hair rose, air roast rhyme scheme that has absolutely no substance or humor. It feels like it only exists to wow the people who aren't reading the subtitles. In a battle that feels so comedy-driven, moments like this feel out of place and just aren't particularly good writing. To briefly comment on other elements I alluded to at the start, the performances are far from the best of the list. Freeze actually is a very fun Leprechaun voice, and I love some of their deliveries. The Psyche line always stands out to me. As a matter of fact, I'll love that in with the great lines just because of Freeze's great performance. Stupendium's higher register for Cupid sounds a little off to me, and they have some surprisingly whack deliveries. The most obvious is, "I'll have this cad buried," when the joke should emphasize it like, "I'll have this cad buried." Even if I'm wrong on that, the existing delivery does not sound good. Then there's Little Flex, who handles the fast rap well, but gives the bunny such a dopey voice that I find irritating and vaguely uncomfortable to listen to. It's hard to pinpoint why, but I don't like the bunny verses in general. Another part of that is the visuals. Luke Reardon fully animated this, and that is awesome. However, I don't really love the designs. Once again, Leprechaun stands out as the best, but Cupid doesn't seem like a character that really fits in Luke's style in my opinion. I know it's meant to be a cartoonier battle in general, but in that case, I question why Cupid's background doesn't reflect that. The Cupid animation and the background don't mix at all, and it makes his design feel very weird. The bunny design also just isn't my favorite, because I think of the Easter Bunny as a white and cute bunny, not blue and, well, ugly. I think my issue might be with the buck teeth being under his nose while the rest of his mouth is nowhere near that, but I'm not sure. Still, there's lots of creativity in the animation, but I don't really get into the battle enough to fully appreciate that and remember the best moments. And nothing in this could ever compare to the glory of the rock turning into a giant nose from the last 3-man battle. So yeah, I have a lot of complaints with this part, but the ending is the only part I genuinely dislike overall. Cupid's drunken monologue goes on way too long for my taste, and it's impossible for me to buy the fact that the bunny saw the arrow pointed at him for several seconds and didn't even respond. Then he gets shot, and his writing is mostly very sensual, and some might find it funny, but I don't think there are any good jokes in there. The one thing I do like is Freeze having the ad-lib, "Get away from me!" And this Leprechaun almost being into the whole thing is kind of a funny thing visually. Otherwise, I guess I find this a little uncomfortable and not funny enough to make up for that. So that's all. This is my least favorite of the major projects, as even though a lot of work went into it, there just aren't many elements that stand out as polished or humorous like I think they were supposed to. Number 18 is Kratos vs. Maui. Alright, hear me out. This one has fans for sure. It feels like such a grand scale project, something like Robin Hood vs. Guy Fawkes, the kind that wows people with ambition. And yes, there are impressive elements here. The art is plentiful to an impressive degree. The shots with all the soldiers are mind-blowing to look at. The main art is gorgeous, with the front-facing Maui still being one of my favorites of the entire part, if not all of rap battles. The beat is very powerful, no doubt having lots of thought put into it. And the voice actors are new guests on Freshy Kanal, both giving pretty solid performances. There's clearly lots of references in the visuals and writing for God of War fans to appreciate, and this whole battle just has the vibe of being one of the best. That's about all I want to say on the positives. I could elaborate on what makes those elements great, but it would be unnecessary because that's not what I take away from the battle. Every time I watch this, I am frustrated by how convoluted and underwhelming the writing is. For me, writing is by far the most important part of a battle. Yes, you can have an enjoyable battle with uninteresting writing if the sound and visuals compensate, and that could have been the case here, but I just don't ever feel like revisiting this for the good elements. If I want to see a pretty video or hear good music, there are a lot of options outside of this rap battle. In general, rap battle writing is what sets apart this bizarre genre of video, and this battle just does not deliver. There are clearly plenty of attempts at major disses and punchlines, but they are written in ways that seriously undermine the impact. One common issue is the setup line being really bad. For example, the line, "Do I gotta show you how to raise a son?" is a solid diss, but the rest of the line cared so much about a rhyme that it crams syllables in a way that Mega Ran could not deliver, and that flub overshadows the actual diss. The line before it has the same issue to a lesser degree, but it uses the phrase, "and those ain't my greatest stunts," to rhyme with raise a son. That also doesn't really work, because it's an odd way for him to say he's done more impressive things, which by the way he really hasn't, and it tries to connect the raise a son joke, but it's broken up by that messy rhyme that I mentioned. This couplet is just really hard to listen to, and while I think the idea of the punchline is good, the other ideas bring the line down. Sometimes, even the big punchline is difficult to decipher. The closer is, "To all the pantheons that I saved from eradication by finishing him once and for all, you're welcome." There's an idea there, but this line is dragged out and delivered in a way that doesn't make it feel like one continuous idea. It took me several rewatches to figure out why he was saying you're welcome. This is maybe the single most convoluted line I'll mention in the entire video, and it's one of few particularly interesting bits of wordplay, so there's very little else to discuss here, frankly. The rhyme schemes and punchlines almost never work here, and while listening to the battle, the best way I can describe the writing is nonsense. It just sounds like rough writing with ridiculous flows, inconsistent deliveries, and little memorability. The one section I really like is the last 4 bars of Kratos verse 1. The performance thrives here, and the rhymes are taken at a tempo that helps them flow well and hit hard. The cold shoulder joke is pretty basic, but it still feels well set up and hits hard as a result. This section is great, and there are good concepts throughout the battle. I just think most of them were executed really poorly in a way that keeps you from enjoying this battle. Maybe others can get past the writing issues, or they don't have those writing issues at all. But I'm sorry, I cannot do that, and even though this is a very well made and impressive battle on many fronts, I don't like it. Number 17 is Boot Hill vs. Rappa, the best sponsored battle, and I admit, I enjoy it. More than Kratos vs. Maui by a lot, actually. It's probably worse written though, there are fewer interesting concepts. However, the fact that it goes for less means that it never fumbles as badly as Kratos vs. Maui. There are some fun and simple jokes in here like, "Those horns look like a golden trophy," and "Graffiti's just like Banksy cause no one knows the real you." It's impossible to get past the baffling pronunciation of lasso as lasso, but I don't go into these expecting writing as strong as the bigger projects, so I never felt frustrated. The other reason this ranks so much higher than the other sponsored battles is that frankly, the audio is good. The beat is an awesome pick and sounds excellent, especially with the added guitar riffs that feel unnecessary, but they're extra effort that I do appreciate in a sponsored battle. And the performances are quite good overall. Ozzy's voice is distinct from her previous roles, and I think it makes this sponsored battle more worth revisiting. The Boot Hill performance is similarly great, setting itself apart from other roles from that VA. So yeah, it's still got the bland video, but it sounds quite great, and I have enjoyed going back to this one more than anything else on the list so far. Number 16 is Pikmin vs. Lethal Company. I find this battle have a lot of flaws, and it might have the least interesting writing of the entire list. But there are some standout high points in that second half. Before that second half, there are very few notable lines. I think Backburner to Nintendo's Backbones is alright, and I'm sure Dandori issue means something, but this one has a lot of rhyme-heavy writing without many interesting lines, and the flow is very basic, so the rhymes aren't impressive enough to make up for the lack of substance. Olimar's first verse is almost entirely just stating diss material with no clever actual disses. The Louis section has a very basic "you just ate" joke that inspired me to write a better one in my own battle, but these first 2 verses are very mediocre from a writing perspective. I also have to admit, the Pikmin animation and voice acting bring down the battle a little bit for me. I don't think Manters was the right pick for Pikmin animation, because the movements are not very fluid. I think Gaming Pulse would have been a better choice. That may not have been feasible in this production cycle, but I still find the Pikmin animation a little off. I also prefer Olimar battles where he has a deep but very clear voice. This one sounds intentionally muffled, and I get the idea, but I don't love how it sounds. So the first half is not my cup of tea, but the second half actually gets pretty funny. I don't know Lethal Company, but the 3 characters all dying mid-verse is outrageous in a comedic way, and some of them even have good lines. I will say, Call Me a Bulborb the Way I Eat the Beat Like Pikmin is a contender for the worst bar ever written. But the Andrew Hagate joke is laugh out loud funny, and is timed brilliantly with the character dying. Then the company's verse is a decent vocal performance, and while there is some awkward writing and delivery here and there, the line, "We'll both have a Hogate main course," is a great joke and a solid threat line. Then the president comes in, no substance like the first half of the battle, but at least we got 2 solid verses in that middle second half there, and there's a very unique presentation for the battle as a whole. I also think the addition of Watto at the end is really funny, so this battle just has a lot of enjoyable moments, even if it's not the most interesting as a conventional rap battle. I prefer battles with more good disses and wordplay, but I appreciate the unique strengths here. Number 15 is Jack Skellington versus the Onceler. This battle also has big fans, and I do like it, but it's also just a mess. There are a lot of weird elements here that don't really work. The thing that brings down the battle the most is the performances. Snakebite126 gives a very standard rapping performance that doesn't really match the extravagance or professionalism of the Onceler, and Carter Sauce just does not sound like Jack Skellington at all. Frankly, I think this battle would have been better if the roles were switched. Carter Sauce would have given a more bombastic Onceler performance based on his Riddler, and Snakebite's already proven himself as Jack Skellington. As is, these performances are not necessarily bad, but they stand out as some of the worst on the list. The video also falls pretty low on this list, as even though there was some great art, and some sequences like the flying sled and the how bad can I be callbacks are fun. But the editing can be very all over the place, and some of the art seems ill-fitting. I'm not sure why certain animations were made, as they don't really fit the story of the battle, especially those at the very end of Jack's first verse. This video is still solid, but it's a step down from most on the list. Furthermore, the battle's intro is very mediocre. The low frame rate and odd wording make it very awkward, and I think the standard introduction would have worked just as well. The only good thing really added in the intro is the funny ad-libs from Jack, and the awkward transition from "a venomous verbal attack" to Jack saying, "Why hello." Beyond those elements, this project feels like it was meant to be a big story-driven battle, but it just doesn't deliver there, and I always found the aggressive final verse kind of jarring. Admittedly, my critiques for this battle are kind of all over the place, but that matches this project. Granted, I do like a lot of the writing here. Lines like, "Re-gift that toxic environment," "Now that's just chump change," "I only need 1 0 to guide me," and "This fossil can power my factories" are all clever and funny. There's good moments littered throughout the project, and it's a pretty enjoyable rap battle as a result. But a lot of the elements that are consistently strong in other battles, like visuals and performances, are pretty messy here. This battle shoots for the moon, and it misses by quite a bit, but I still think it's pretty fun. Number 14 is Yugi Muto vs Moon Knights. This one is nothing like the rest. It sort of feels like a combo of Kratos vs Maui and the Billy Kid one. There's a stylish video, but the writing is super fast and rhyme heavy. There are maybe 2 lines that I can point to as good rap battle lines. This writing is all about being catchy, and fortunately, it does deliver. The audio is very well constructed, with a bombastic but smooth beat fitting both the matchup and the vibe. On the Moon Knight side, Connor Quest never lets up with the flow, even when having to switch voices, so those verses are very easy to enjoy even with a lack of great lines. I mentioned some rhyme schemes making little sense in other battles, and most of this battle is frankly like that. But it gets more leeway because it's clearly not trying to be a densely written project like Cupid or Kratos. The audio and video were the bigger focus here, and the battle delivers for the most part. My one big critique is that Cam Steady is not able to do that Yami voice anymore, and it sounded like he was kind of straining the whole time. Otherwise, this is a very enjoyable listen. Maybe not a great rap battle, but the audio Moon Knight performance sucked me in a lot more than the previous entries on this list. Number 13 is King Midas vs Medusa. This one is a similar audio presentation to Yugi vs Moon Knight, but it clearly tries to be a more conventional rap battle. It works in some ways but not others. The style over substance approach is great in the Midas first verse. He only talks about himself for the first half of it, so it's a fun way to incorporate catchy writing with no disses into a rap battle. The catchy writing also works very well in the middle section of the battle that I think is the highlight. The Greek pottery animation by BMB is very cool and well storyboarded, and the sections tied together with the low-key parts of the beat and more intense vocal deliveries, making it stand out as the most engaging part of the battle. It's very different from the rest. Maybe the transition out of it into the final verses is not all that good, but I really like this part and I'm just glad it exists. In general, I have a lot more issues with the Medusa side. This side is entirely focused on dissing Midas, so the sloppy writing does not get a free pass. The thing that bothers me most here is that she keeps changing the pronouns she refers to Midas with. Sometimes she'll say you, like speaking directly. Other times it's he or him, as if speaking indirectly. That inconsistency is very weird, but it would be forgivable if the change only happened once. Instead, it goes back and forth multiple times. Midas did that too, maybe even worse, but it's easier to overlook there. There are also select lines that just really confuse me, and they could have been changed easily. The best example? The first verse closer, no pound of gold can outweigh your loneliness. The idea of the diss is good, but fun fact, every pound of gold weighs 1 pound. It should have been something like, no pile of gold, or just anything else that would make sense. This one baffles me. The Medusa side does still have its strengths, the costume and stake effects are cool, and Stargirl was an excellent casting choice. But this writing is clunky while not being as fun as Midas's. There are great ideas and sequences in here, and it works as a rap battle more than Yugi, but a lot of it does not fully succeed. Number 12 is Buggy the Clown vs. Arthur Fleck. There is one major issue with this one, but I also find a lot of the project just so much fun. For me, the big flaw keeping this out of the top 10 is the Arthur Fleck vocal performance. Maguire was not the right choice. He sounds nothing like any Joker I've ever heard, but he's clearly trying to make his voice sound less smooth, but instead of being more like the Joker, it just makes him sound more like he's not fully awake. It's not a good voice, and it's also not really a great performance in general, as there are certain jokes that don't get the proper emphasis and they don't land as a result. This is a contender for the worst performance in Part 7, which is a shame because Maguire is an excellent performer. I do have other nitpicks on the Joker side, like how Joker looks way too small next to the stairwell at some points, but in general, I still really enjoy this battle for the Buggy side in particular. I don't know anything about One Piece, and that might play a role in my enjoyment, hopefully not, but everything just works here. The editing is slick, Freshy Kanal's performance is loud and intense, and the writing is catchy but also very dense with meaning. The whole family circus scheme is awesome. It sets up the diss material with solid but not overly complicated rhymes, and it leads into the clever but simple joke about that material. It's awesome. There's also some good lines here, like the "Did you say no's?" that are mainly just jokes, and they work well following up lines like "No one truly knows art," which is also a great line. The connection between the different verses and the sort of reactions to each other's words is a very fun bit here. There's a lot of great writing in this battle as a whole. Some of it is kind of meh, but there's nothing I especially dislike, and it has my favorite lines of any battle I've mentioned so far. Additionally, the beat is just fun. It has a great circus vibe to it, and the use of claps at certain moments in the writing helps keep the energy up at appropriate moments. I just think this battle is very well thought out, save for that Joker casting. Other than that, I love revisiting it. Number 11 is Beetlejuice vs. Candyman. I don't have much to add here that I didn't cover in my list of the best rap battles of 2024. This one's very simple live action, but is cohesive as a result. There aren't a ton of super out there ideas save for a few 3D visuals and notably unique rhyme schemes, but that's fine. The entire battle was written by a single person, Snakeby126, so all of the ideas flow together very nicely. Not all of them are super interesting or super clean. The Candyman 5 times rhyme scheme tries a bit too hard in my opinion, but those lower moments are interspersed with great lines like "You've been slipping since Peel," and "You suck at the whole being dead thing." This writing is brought to life by two great performances, one of which is a great Maguire performance, elevating this battle above Arthur Fleck. I think both performances are pretty excellent, emphasizing the right words, making the punchlines land every single time, so the directing was very tight. That's all I have to say. This is just a well-rounded battle with very few flaws that's not one of Freshy Kanal's best, but certainly a great project. Number 10 is Jafar vs. Rasputin. This one is definitely not perfect, and there are a lot of issues that I've already described, but there are so many things I absolutely love here. I can acknowledge the notable issues first. Here's a quick numbered list. 1. The Jafar performance sometimes tries to do an impression and other times does not, therefore being inconsistent. 2. Rasputin has almost no good disses. He sounds great and has some strong flow, but his big closer is that Jafar needs to find the genie to get more power. There's just not a whole lot of oomph there. 3. This writing also changes perspective constantly like Midas vs. Medusa. The most notable examples in the middle of the Jafar vs. 1, where Jafar suddenly calls Rasputin he or him instead of you, just to make a rhyme work. It's something I wish was ironed out more. However, there are other aspects of this battle that make it among the most revisited of the list for me. First of all, this video is awesome. The art was done by Skydiving Quagga, and it is utterly fantastic. So stylish and detailed, and there are a ton of awesome poses. The one issue I have is that the absolute best still in the battle is a Jafar one that only appears for one line. The entire battle could have been that still, and it would have been good. The art is great, but it's brought to life by great editing mostly from RNG. He puppet tools the heck out of this art, even making Rasputin run across the screen. It's so dynamic, lending itself to engaging moments that also serve as some interactions between the characters. It makes the battle feel more like it's actually happening, and that's really cool. The other elements I particularly like here are the beat and the punchlines. The beat was made by Freshy Kanal, and I love the sound of it. The instruments on both sides are pleasant, and they're distinct from each other, and that beat switch in the second half is handled very well. In terms of punchlines, while they are lacking on that Rasputin side, I especially love two lines here. Those are, "Send a Russian to the Earth Send, it's time for revolution," and "You were only a sultan sexually." Both are clever and enjoyable references to Aladdin while successfully tying into the opponents. There are some minor wording issues in them, but they don't make the line that much more convoluted, and I don't think they needed to be changed to be good. So the best parts of the writing still really shine through in this battle. There are great lines that couldn't really be used in any other matchup, and that makes the battle's writing special in a way. Maybe I can't fully justify the high placement of this one, but I love so many aspects of it, it simply had to make my top 10. It's a very entertaining watch and a very solid rap battle. Number 9 is the Slasher Cypher. I've never reviewed a cypher before, so this might get a little scatterbrained. I don't really listen to nerdcore. Apparently rap battles are considered a subgenre of nerdcore, but I didn't sign up for that when I started making them. I make them because I like DRB and their funny writing and character portrayals. Nerdcore doesn't usually have that. It's more like real music just focused on nerdy things. Not always my thing, but Freshy Kanal ciphers are quite good, and this one is comfortably my second favorite of the three, behind the Fairy Tale cipher. I won't be breaking down every verse here, that just wouldn't be productive, so let's talk about what makes this a great project but not one of the very best. The one thing this definitely has over the other two ciphers is the video. Some sections look weird, most notably the Dinner Place typography in the Hannibal Lecter verse. The other sequences, like that start of the Michael Myers verse, are impressive, faithful to the character, and still fit in a cipher that usually doesn't do a whole lot of interesting stuff like that. That's a big plus. As an overall audio, this is quite great like the other ciphers. There's a great beat, and the added instruments for each rapper are almost all good. I don't love the Freddy Krueger beat sound, but otherwise, this is pretty much as good as any cipher beat. So this is very clearly a high quality project, but what matters most here is those verses. Admittedly, the first half has some issues. I think 3 of the 5 verses are kind of eh. Freddy Krueger and Leatherface have interesting writing every once in a while, but they're mostly pretty boring to me, and the rapping performances didn't really appeal to me. My brain sort of tunes out during those verses on rewatch, but I fully pay attention to that Jason verse. You know it from the Chazington video, but after that first line, the flow gets really weird for a bit, with overlapping rhymes and some botched deliveries. It's surprising, and it just doesn't sound very good. So easily my least favorite verse in this cipher, maybe of any Freshy Kanal cipher. Other than those verses, they're all pretty good. The 7 remaining ones range from solid like Ghostface to some of the best verses in all of Part 7. The best one is right after Jason. That's the Chucky verse. Written and performed by lyacon, it has such a loud and chaotic energy, but it's full of hilarious jokes and phenomenal flow. It's simultaneously a standard good cypher verse, and nothing like any other I've heard before. I am addicted to it, and it's definitely the best written and performed. But the final verse might be even stronger for a rap battle fan like myself. Michael Myers ends the battle, and this verse is a brilliant finale. I already mentioned the inspired visuals, and I can also shout out the final shot showing all the slashers being a great conclusion. However, this verse's beat and writing are utterly phenomenal. It starts with an acoustic guitar version of the Halloween theme and a crazy rhyme scheme. But then, there's a subtle pause before Myers says Haktua, and then the flow slightly switches up, and the beat gets even more intense. That pause might be the greatest moments in Freshy Kanal history. It contributes to an absolutely insane flow and escalation of the audio. This verse is so fantastically written, and it sounds so grand. It gives me goosebumps every time, and it's just the perfect ending to an awesome project. Yes, some verses here are more forgettable or have their flaws, but the whole project is so great, and has several phenomenal verses with far more great verses than not. It's just below the tier of the battles that I think are especially fantastic, but it's pretty close. Number 8 is Sonic.exe versus Ben Drowned. I spoke very highly of this one on my top battles of 2024 list, but it's moved down for me a little bit. There are some exceptional elements here, but I think they sort of carry the battle, and the parts without them are not as interesting. The element that does the most lifting is the beat. On its own, it's a very good beat fitting both as a horror beat and a video game beat. But it really stands out in the Sonic.exe verses when it gets super intense. These parts are impossible not to get sucked into just because of how good the beat is. The Sonic side also has a loud and powerful performance from Yuki Gloom, an assortment of awesome lines, my favorite being X gon' give it to ya, and a great video that really does tell a story in the first verse. However, I wonder how much of that would stick with me if the beat wasn't as good as it is. The reason I wonder this is because the Ben side is good but not great in my opinion. The performance is still pretty good, but there are some deliveries that seem sort of awkward, such as a curse passed to every new kid. But that might be the result of the writing. There are some weird setups here, such as the one saying cut up all your friends to bits to rhyme with edginess, which clearly was not easy to perform. There's also a couple of rhymes here that are weird, such as rhyming cover with covered, which while I get the different meanings, I don't think it sounds all that good or really works enough as a diss to be worth that odd wording. There are great lines like Ben's closer and I ended up inspiring you, but this side is a little awkward and uninteresting at points. The beat remains low-key the whole time, and it makes me think that the Sonic side is only good because of that beat, or maybe the battle only holds my attention when the beat is going crazy. This might not be the case. I do still enjoy a lot of the writing, visuals, and deliveries, but while this battle has sensational highs, I can't deny its shortcomings any longer. Number 7 is Arthur Morgan vs. Trevor Phillips. I know nothing about these rappers. In fact, I once accidentally called them Trevor Morgan and Arthur Phillips. But this is such a great battle on all fronts. I have very few issues with it. But let's go through those first. There are some deliveries from Trevor that emphasize the wrong syllable and sound weird as a result. The first couplet of the last verse has the whole he and him instead of you thing, and it was completely unnecessary. Lastly, Arthur travels to so many places and backgrounds that it almost feels like he's not even rap battling and is just kind of doing his own thing, while Trevor actually feels like he's in a rap battle. Honestly, that's it for nitpicks. This is an excellent project. I don't really love it because I don't know the characters, but it is some of the best visuals, instrumental, and writing of anything on the list. I mentioned Arthur not always looking like he's in a rap battle, but the many sequences are all so grand and impressively edited, thanks to Power of Dan. The train sequence is my personal favorite, but this is a very memorable video all the way throughout. There are so many ideas and they're all executed wonderfully. For the beat, it was produced by Glitch Dude and is a much better use of vocal samples than the Billy Kid battle. The percussion loop sounds fantastic, and the distinct acoustic instruments for Arthur and synths for Trevor are absolutely beautiful. That synth especially is just mind-blowing and on par with my favorite parts of that Sonic.exe beat. For writing, the disses feel like they were the main focus for sure, and the whole battle is so intense. There's a great sense of humor on the Trevor side, but also lots of really harsh lines, like the wife one I alluded to earlier that has that whole he-you issue. It's still a great line. The flow is still very smooth here. I love the way they have the line go over the beat in the Tahiti and back part. It changes up the flow a little bit, but it still sounds great. There's tons of clever lyrics here that the comments section is exploring in depth. That's always great to see. Writing that gets fans of both characters engaged in discussion. This battle was not made for me, but it was made very well. Definitely one of the best of Part 7. Number 6 is Creeper vs. Bob-omb. One of the last of Part 7 and one of the most popular. It already has over 1 million views, and it is pure fun, but also more impressive than something like Buggy vs. Arthur Fleck. I guess my best description is that it has all the strengths of Arthur Morgan vs. Trevor Phillips, but in a more catchy and lighthearted package that speaks to me more. The beat is great. The rapping is smooth. And even though there are a lot of writers, the flow is quite great throughout. On top of that, this battle stands out for being full of fun moments in the same way the best ERBs are. The ideas all connect together very well, but there are clear highlights. In terms of writing, there are a handful of lines I especially love. Those include, "The garbage is the only place he'll be winding up," and of course the closer, "I just shot you down, that'll be a new record." Those are clever and funny lines while being shockingly strong disses, given the characters being very small. Then there's the whole 10 hot section of the first bob-omb verse. It's so much fun. Everyone in the comments loves that part, and I do too. It's a crowd-pleasing moment lending itself to catchy writing that still pulls off some decent wordplay. This battle is a bop through and through, with great memorable writing. But it's further serviced by what I would consider the best video on the list so far, and at the bare minimum a top 4 video of the part. Luke Reardon's animation is even more creative than Cupid, and there's no style clashes. I especially love how bob-omb's wick is used to express emotions. It's just a brilliant idea. Then there's Cyanco providing excellent Minecraft animation like in their own Minecraft vs. Cave Story battle. More on Cyanco later though. That's all I have to say on Creeper vs. Bob-omb. It is an excellent battle, and it's definitely worthy of top 5, but there are 5 battles that I love even more. Number 5 is Caine vs. Alastor. This one's not perfect. The video is among the lowest on the list. Some of the art's not super fitting, and the video is just 2D stills of famously animated characters and some random backgrounds. There is very little storytelling and very little animation, and it's not what one might want from a TADC or Has Been Hotel battle. However, I don't care. This audio and writing is just so likable. Even when I have issues with it, I can't ignore how invested I get in this battle. It's simply a blast from start to finish. But why? First off, both performances are contenders for the best of Part 7. Longest solo ever as Caine and Jeesh as Alastor sound great, flow flawlessly, deliver every line exactly how they should, and have insane impressions for the respective roles. I'm obsessed with certain deliveries like Jeesh saying, 25 minutes of nothing, and Longest Solo Ever saying, well, I speak to your manager. Absolutely excellent roles for both of them, and they make this the overall best performed battle of Part 7. Pairing with these great performances, though, is one of the best beats. Custom produced by Kiwi, it has such a distinct sound in the Freshy Kanal catalog, and it gets very chaotic but always pleases the ear. The audio is borderline untouchable, and that's not all that makes the battle awesome. There's the writing. Admittedly, these jokes do get a bit convoluted at points. The couplet, "There's a place the street across that you know well, take him to the has-been-done-before hotel," has a great joke buried in odd grammar for the sake of rhymes, and a contradiction saying Caine would know the hotel well, but still needs to be taken there. I think the couplet should have been written as, "There's a place across the street you should know well, check into the has-been-done-before hotel." However, thanks to the great presentation of the audio, nearly every joke, including that one, still lands brilliantly. There are so many great lines here such as, "He could be Caine, he got sonned by Adam. We all know he's powerless when Caine snaps," and "The bootlegs made a bigger digital footprint." Then there's also the bit with Pomni and Jackson. They have a very good closer of their section with, "He's used to replacing the cast." Tons of awesome lines, greatly elevated by that top tier audio. What else can I say? I do love this one. It's a banger on every re-listen, and even if it's not perfectly polished and the video could use more time in the oven, the audio is straight heat. Number 4 is Huggy Wuggy vs. the Rolling Giants. The first battle of Part 7, it is the total package. It is everything that makes a Freshy Kanal battle great. It's 3D animated with wonderfully atmospheric scene composition. The beat is catchy but has interesting changes to make it stand out. Both performances are great. The writing mixes catchy rhyme schemes with clever disses, and there's storytelling in the last verse in particular. I've covered this one before, and I don't really need to say more, but I will anyway. What really stands out to me about this battle is that it feels like it had a set vision, especially on that rolling giant side. It's clear that Freshy Kanal is a fan of the oldest view, and he wanted to use it in the battle even though it's not that well known. The oldest view, for those who do not know, is a YouTube series with 10 million views on its most popular video, which is a lot, but it can't contend with something like the Amazing Digital Circus. For that, I really appreciate Freshy Kanal giving it his all on a battle he probably expected not many would see. He went all in on writing lines that are accessible for those who haven't seen the oldest view, but are also rewarding for those who do know it, especially lines like, "How you gonna escalate? You can't make it upstairs," and "Don't bother a monolith made to honor a botanist." Then there's the way the beat changes in that final verse. It gets more intense, and it shows Huggy Wuggy following the same path as the main character from the oldest view, even dying in the same way. It's an awesome concept that's great for fans, but doesn't take away from the battle for those who don't know the source material. It's a perfect balance, and while the battle still has some small writing issues and is not the most interesting in terms of storyboarding on the Huggy Wuggy side, it's pretty darn fantastic as a whole. Number 3 is the Spot versus WD Gastra. Now we're getting to the really good stuff. This one needs no introduction. Well, maybe it does, because the introduction shot of Spot is one of the most amazing moments of any rap battle. Right when I saw that, I knew this was something special. Like with the oldest view, the Spot side of the battle is all about doing him justice with creative visuals and characterization, and it's perfect. The visuals are impressive for anyone who knows or doesn't know the Spot, and the performance can hook anybody. If you do know the Spot, it's an excellent representation of the character's abilities and his mindset. The way Gastra's minions make fun of him in his own verse is hilarious, and when the Spot snaps and the visuals replicate the flash forward he has in Spider-Verse, there's nothing else like it. Granted, other parts of the battle don't hit that level of perfection. The first verse has a few deliveries and flow patterns that I find odd. Those include the line, "Some awkward nerd double that on the sweat," and just the word "but D." I don't love the way those are said, and the Gastra side is definitely not as good as the Spot side. It's well edited, well performed, is a great beat by Enway, but it doesn't have the same creativity as the Spot side. It feels a little bit like there wasn't much of a vision for him. Still, he has good lines, and his minions were a necessary part of the Spot verses, so he does justify his existence in the battle. That said, I do think Spot verse 2 somewhat eclipses the rest of this battle, whereas the top two stay consistently great throughout. This one is still excellent, but it's more of a master of one that can't top a jack of all trades. Number 2 is TMNT versus Ghostbusters. This one is perfect. It's great in every regard like the previous two entries, but it also has an unbeatable spirit that makes it even more fun to watch than those. There's so much I can talk about here, I don't even know where to begin. Let me just talk about some of my favorite things about the battle, because there really aren't any major flaws holding it down. The first thing to shout out is the video. It's fully animated by Cyancoat, and it is beautiful. Perhaps his most smooth and polished animation yet, but it's also especially fun, especially with those silly facial expressions for the Ghostbusters. There's so much going on, so many Easter eggs, and I could never dream of catching all of them. I didn't even realize the turtles were battling Stay Puft at first. He's in the background, so the focus of the shot is never the only thing to look at. There are tons of funny visuals, like Mikey doing a dance before getting hit by a katana almost, and the video is stylish and inspired, gorgeous for anyone who likes good editing and animation, and a dream come true for fans of either property. I dare say, this might be the best Freshy Kanal video of all time. Spot has more styles, but this one is just so consistently interesting, and the clear vision the whole way through might make it the best. Definitely a standout plus for this battle. On the audio side, the best word to describe the audio is hype. The beat is funky but powerful, and the performances are so high energy. Every individual VA does a great job, but the standout moments are when all 4 members of the team deliver a line together. The delivery of "We got one" at the very end of the Ghostbusters verse makes it a wonderful closer. And the Turtles even managed to outdo it with their final verse. In this battle, both sides get more interesting team synergy in the second half, and I love that progression. And it peaks with these turtles chanting in reference to the whole Go Ninja Go song in the background of their second verse. It's perfect and impossible not to nod your head to. The delivery of the closer is the icing on the cake. Apart from deliveries, this has my favorite writing of any battle so far, maybe any battle on the list. The jokes are easy to digest, even as someone who doesn't know that much about the characters, and I can't think of a single line with clunky wording that takes away from the meaning. I shouted out both closers already, but there are so many other great lines. My favorite is probably, "For every ghost that you catch, you leave half a city of new ones." It's an incredible script. There's nothing else to say. This battle is a blast. One of the best team battles ever made, one of the best rap battle videos ever made, pretty much flawless, and absolutely among the best Freshy Kanal rap battles of all time. But number 1 is Hercule Poirot vs Benoit Blanc. Yeah, I'm basic. I put the enormous Royale at the top of the list. But I can't help it. A project like this has so much going on that there are no doubt going to be some faults. I can list out some things that bother me first. Let's see. Hercule's background looks very fake. The Benoit Blanc verse is edited in a way that never looks like he's actually there. Elle's verse feels like it's over too quickly. The Batman 3D animation segment is jarring. The Shaggy line, "Who raised you to be such an idiot like the butler did it?" should have swapped out the word idiot with dimwit. Most of the lines referencing the murder plot of the rap battle feel a little out of place and confusing. So yeah, this one's not perfect. But with a battle this big, it needs to be said that for every fault, there are about 24 amazing elements that could be recognized. I can't even begin to list off everything that makes the battle great, but it's consistently incredible to watch. Every verse has great punchlines. Every beat is bliss. Every performance is distinct but brilliantly realized. And every time a new rapper is introduced, it just raises your interest as you keep watching. I like the idea of this Detective Royale. It's built around a story of all of them trying to solve the case, and even if some of the lines in regard to that don't really work, some of them are great, like Columbo figuring it must have been a wealthy person who did it, and then Elle dissing Columbo for his assumption. And of course the entirety of the Sherlock verse and that great reveal at the end are awesome moments. There are so many things I love here, so similar to listing off the faults, let me list out some great standouts. Let's see. Stupendium's performance is flawless. The Who's Dumbest punchline is brilliant. Ben after the shoulder bounce is a vibe. Schwabity's accent is perfect. The Columbo beat really does harken back to the show. This battle taught me the word how catch 'em. Gianni is so much fun at this battle. The less Columbo, more Columbus line single-handedly justifies Elle in the battle. The Batman verse has atmospheric visuals. The Knight makes an L. Luke's Scooby-Doo animation is awesome. Shaggy referencing "wasn't me" is a great laugh-out-loud reference. There are several lines dissing Hercule's loss of his wife, and they're all distinct and great. Ending on a Rustage verse is an awesome idea, and his writing is fire like any great Rustage verse. And the twist at the end that the dude was still alive is everything. You get the idea. This battle is chock full of things to appreciate on all fronts. It's not entirely as tight as TMNT vs Ghostbusters, but it has so much going for it that it outdoes that battle in terms of the sheer quantity of excellent elements. Some might prefer a tighter project, and maybe this could grow off me with time. But for now, this one is my most rewatch of the entire part despite being very new, and it's one of my favorite Freshy Kanal battles of all time, as an exceptional ending to Part 7, and I can't wait to see what's next. Thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed this ranking. Comment down below yours, and tell me anything you might think is crazy about mine. Subscribe for more rap battles and other rankings, and check out the dozens already on the channel. I'll see you next time.